Hello and welcome to the Glory Podcast. I'm your host as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is Tom Simpson from the United Pubcast in Australia. How's it going, Tom?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, can't complain. Man United top of the league. It'd be good if the season could stop now, but yeah, only positive feelings at the moment. Buzzing. Yeah, can't complain at all. Australia and Sydney is going through maybe a bit of a tough time at the moment during with COVID, and we are in lockdown, and it looks like our lockdown will be extended. But as long as United are top of the table, I'll live with the lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a dream start to the season. Varane being presented to the crowd at the start of the match and then going on to beat rivals Leeds 5-1. And it's even more satisfying given the behaviour of the Leeds fans on the day, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, as a lot of your listeners will know, like a kickoff time for us here in Sydney, it was actually a good kickoff time for us. It was a 9:30 p.m. game. We were sort of watching the news filter through sort of over dinner time, and you saw some of the footage outside the ground and in the sort of centre of Manchester. And it's one of those ones that's sort of sad to see, but then you say, well, it's not surprising. Obviously, they had the return to Old Trafford last season, but obviously no fans. But yeah, it's such a big occasion for United, obviously, to get the win, but obviously get the win against an opposition like Leeds, obviously in the manner that we did. It is good to see those Leeds fans who were acting up. It's pleasing to me knowing that they went home, obviously very hurt and disappointed. That was pleasing to me.
Yeah, I also had a Leeds fan in work telling me on Friday that we were going to suffer a Bielsa masterclass. So, needless to say, he hasn't responded to me this morning.
Well, Bielsa, I think Bielsa is one who needs to take a little bit of criticism because the way he keeps going at teams, and it's they get quite, I don't know if the word smashed, but yeah, look at 6-2 and 5-1. They do get sort of hammered from time to time, and he does get a lot of praise. And could you imagine if another manager sort of goes and sort of attacks the team, and keeps conceding goals? So Bielsa obviously has fantastic traits as a manager, and Leeds love him, and rightly so. Fair play to them. But I think he's just as culpable as any other in these sort of big defeats.
Yeah, it's really if you play like against if you're in like a mid-table side and you play like that against one of the top sides, it's kamikaze football, really.
Yeah.
And I thought he had learned when they got the 0-0 at Allen Road by getting more players behind the ball, but he went
Mm.
back to the tactics that he used when they lost 6-2. I was a bit surprised about that.
Yeah, well, as you say, he had the blueprint from that second performance at Ellen Road. I don't know if he had maybe a assumption, maybe rightly so. He thought United weren't going to be fit that first game of the season, and thought, well, okay, it won't be the same as the 6-2. Maybe we can catch them out. But thankfully, he got it wrong, and long may it continue.
Yeah, and Solskjaer very much got it right. Like there was a few criticisms from the fans of the team sheet when it came out, but once again that was premature because the performance was absolutely electric, particularly in the second half.
Look, that's the thing on the team selection. I think it's such a big part of the match day now is that hour before kickoff when that team news comes through. It's almost, for some people, it's almost bigger than the game. Like, that's where the anticipation is to see who's playing, who's not playing. And look, I'm not a huge fan of McTominay and Fred playing together. I really like McTominay as a player, but in that pairing, you think there are sort of concerns. And I shared my frustrations as well when that team news was announced. It wasn't what I wanted to see. Not so much from seeing them play in terms of what Solskjaer wanted. I just thought Donny van der Beek and Nemanja Matic deserved to play off the back of their pre-season and sort of naturally being maybe a little bit fitter in terms of sort of having longer at training and more minutes under their belt. But Solskjaer, it was a huge decision, and you could only imagine the reaction if the result went wrong. If we did lose and we lined up with that midfield, Solskjaer really sort of went all out, and he has to take huge credit for it because they have walked away with a 5-1 win, top of the table. So while I did have questions and still probably have questions over that lineup, I can't. Solskjaer got it completely right. And Sir Alex Ferguson used to always make the point: the sign of a great manager and a great leader is the ability to make a decision that every single person disagrees with, but you in your heart is right. And Solskjaer knew Fred and McTominay were the ones for him on the day, even though a lot of people would disagree, but he stuck with it, and you have to give him full credit for it because it was a brave decision.
Yeah, it was, and they both played well, to be honest.
Mm.
Fred getting a goal, a very rare goal indeed.
Yeah, well, yeah, Fred did well, as you say, and Solskjaer even almost alluded to it at the end, saying like, we'll go goals from everywhere. Look, even if Fred scored at the end, anyone can score a goal for us. A little bit tongue in cheek, but yeah, I was really pleased with Fred because I'm not his biggest fan, but you can't help but everyone's kind of loves Fred, even though he sort of frustrates the hell out of us. He is one player when you do see him do well, it does bring a smile to your face.
Yeah, and obviously Greenwood had a smashing game. Pogba got 4 assists. Well, I think that he's already beaten last season's total for assists. I think he got
Yeah.
3 in the Premier League in total last season. Now he's got 4 in one game. Fernandez got a hat trick. It's just absolutely sublime. But I think the unsung hero of the day was definitely McTominay for me.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. In terms of on the podcast we do a sort of a 3-2-1, 3 points for our man of the match, 2 points and 1 point, so on. And obviously a hat trick for Bruno. You got to give it to Bruno. Pogba 4 assists. Then I was looking at sort of the Mason Greenwood, how important that goal was. But if you take away the goals, which you can't do, it's a game of football. Goals are important. You take away the assists and just look at the time McTominay was on the pitch, just in regards to performance levels. He was our best player. I thought he was above Bruno. He was above Pogba. That takes nothing away from how good Bruno and Pogba were. But just in regards to the football and the performance levels, I thought it was one of his best displays and fully justified his place in the team because you look at his pre-season, I think what did he get 20 minutes at centre back against Everton? So to come into a high pressure situation like that, first game of the season into an intense midfield battle, to perform the way he did, I thought he was fantastic.
Although he is accustomed to that against Leeds, he got 2 in the first 3 minutes last season. And obviously in Europa League final, I thought he was our best player. So
Yeah.
he's basically continued on from there, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, yeah, I wouldn't say thank you for bringing up the Europa League final. Did try to forget about that, but you do cast your mind back to that, and he was definitely our best player in that game, both from a performance level, but also from that effort level, which he'll always bring. And he is one where, sort of unfortunately, just in terms of the way the team selection does come about, he is paired sort of when you have a McTominay discussion. Fred is almost dragged into that discussion, unfortunately. But if you look in isolation, just in regards to McTominay as a player and the way he has developed in recent times, he's almost not, I wouldn't say first name on the team sheet. Oh, God, you've got Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes, etc. But in that midfield, whatever pairing, I'm always sort of pretty happy to see Scott McTominay in there.
Well, let's talk about the defense for a minute. Lindelof, I thought, was the best out of the 4, and
Yeah.
it showed that his position is the one that's under threat the most with the arrival of Varane. He's likely to be the man that drops out, and he performed like a man whose place is under threat. So will that make for a selection dilemma for Solskjaer, or is Lindelof just going to be dropped no matter what for Varane?
I think long term, yeah, he'll be dropped no matter what he does. I think long term, but at the moment, yeah, I think at the moment it'd be very unfair to almost change that team. I think maybe we could have a discussion about Dan James, but at the back, as you say, Lindelof was the pick of the bunch. Not that they had too much to do. Like Harry Maguire didn't have a poor game, but Lindelof was just a little bit more involved in the way the game panned out. Obviously, had a great assist, and while Varane will walk into this team eventually, at the moment, I think he can be a little bit patient. He can give Varane a week or two on the training pitch and sort of ease him in, sort of thing. But if I was Victor Lindelof, I would be expecting to start against Southampton, and rightly so.
Well, there has been a debate online, particularly on Twitter, about the potential for Lindelof to play as a defensive midfielder. Um, some people obviously strongly disagree, and others are kind of, positive about that idea. What would be your opinion on it?
Look, I wouldn't like to see it. However, I can see the line of thinking because he's quite a good footballer. So sometimes he can be a little bit wasteful on the ball, but he is a good footballer. He's got a good touch. He's got very good technique. He can move the ball. So he kind of has the attributes. I could see a situation where Victor Lindelof plays in that 6 role and looks very good. But I could also see a game where he just gets run over the top of and sort of struggles to get into the game. So look, if we're top of the table by 15, 20 points come March, I'd like to see sort of trial and see how it goes. However, if I was given the option of Nemanja Matic or McTominay in there, or potentially even a new signing, I'll definitely opt in for that rather than sort of experimenting with Lindelof. But I can see the line of thinking, but it's not something I would be pushing forward with at the moment.
Well, the scary thing from the point of view of the other 19 teams in the league is that we won 5-1 playing scintillating football, and Cavani, Rashford, and Varane haven't even been involved yet. But I would still argue we need a defensive midfielder. Like we've talked about many times, McTominay and Fred, none of those they have to play together, and they're almost playing the role of one man. None of them are specialist defensive midfielders. They're both kind of box to box players. I would like to see a specialist come in there, because that it really allows us to play not only Fernandez and Pogba together, but also an extra forward. who would be your ideal candidate to come in there, realistically?
Look, it's hard because I fully agree. If I was to sign another player, it would be that number 6, that defensive midfielder. But you say, who's my realistic candidate? I honestly don't know. I honestly, you look around the names, probably the heaviest linked in regards to that position is Ruben Neves. And I love Ruben Neves as a player. It just, in my opinion, I'm sure he could do that role. I just don't really see him as sort of a defensive midfielder. I see him as sort of he could maybe do that role in a sort of creative aspect. He could sit in there and dictate play. But I think we need that player who can dictate play, but also has that defensive edge. Now, I don't watch enough of Wolves to know if he really has that about him. He might do. I'm not quite sure. But he doesn't stand out as the ideal person for me in that role. But then I look around, a lot of people have always mentioned Ndidi, and I'm sure he would do very well at United, but there's no real smoke there. I can't really see that happening. And other than that, I really can't see who really comes in, and maybe that is why it is quiet on that transfer front, because there is no names. One of the ones I was having a debate with a mate the other day, and a lot of people would disagree, and this definitely isn't realistic. Well, I say realistic. You look at Barcelona's finances; it could be realistic. A lot of people don't like the player, but I would be going out and getting Sergio Busquets. I know Barcelona have a lot of financial troubles, but I just think a number 6 who can sit in there and dictate play. The experience, we look at the experience, we're so excited with Rafael Varane bringing. Look, he's definitely divides opinion, Sergio Busquets, but from what I like from a footballer, besides maybe his diving antics and play acting, I think as a footballer, he'd really suit United. But again, you said realistic. I can't see a situation where we're signing him.
Yeah, even with Barcelona's 1.2 billion pounds of debt, I'm not sure that he will end up in United the next 2 weeks. But what
Yeah.
age is he now, just by the way?
He's been around a while, but he started quite young, so I wouldn't assume he's too old. I would assume early 30s, maybe in that sort of Nemanja Matic category, maybe a little bit older. Could be something I should have researched beforehand, but he's one of those players I think because he is an all action. He sort of really sits in there and uses the experience. He reads the game quite well. I think he isn't a player that needs that energy. He needs to be bombing around the pitch. That's not his game. It never has been. So that is why I think that's not a real concern to me, even if he is sort of getting on in years. I still, and look, that is a hard thing if to expect him to come into the Premier League and sort of perform straight away would be difficult. But again, like you said, I don't think there's any situation where Sergio Busquets ends up at United. But it goes back to you. Is there a person for you that you'd be sort of targeting for that defensive midfielder?
Well, yeah, it would probably be either an Ndidi or Rice for me. What we really want is a destroyer, rather than a deep line playmaker. But I would take a deep line playmaker who is a bit combative, like a Ruben Neves.
Mm,
Um, there also Camavinga has been talked about. He's a very, very young player, but I think
yeah.
he's more like a deep line playmaker as well. But I do think I haven't seen an awful lot of him, but I have heard from other people that he does like a tackle as well, and his tackling stats are pretty high in Ligue 1. So he seems to be most likely at the moment for some reason, even though he seems to favour a move to PSG. He seems to be the likeliest option at the moment. Obviously, United don't seem to be interested in Ndidi. Declan Rice, obviously, we're being quoted £100 million plus, and yeah, they're not going to pay that. Definitely not in this window anyway. So I haven't heard United being after Ruben Neves either. I
Mm.
think it's more of like kind of a fan link rather than any journalists telling us that United are in for him. But Camavinga, the likes of Fabrizio Romano was still talking about that possibility this summer. So
I think from a United's point of view, and whether us as fans you want to play like Camavinga, if you think it's a good signing, as a footballer, if you think he's a good addition to our midfield or not, that's another debate. I just think from United's opinion is a player of his potential looks available at quite a good price. So whether United really want him or don't really want him, they could probably just see an opportunity. We think, well, look, if this player does turn out to be something special, let's just take a risk now at 30 million because he could be a £150 million player in 2-3 years. So I can see United just from a business point of view. That is why the interest is there with Camavinga, rather than just okay, he's the answer to our midfield problems. I just think United are monitoring the situation because, as I say, if he leaves for free at the end of next season, or at the end of this season, he's got his pick of the clubs, and it does look like pretty much all the top clubs are after him. So if United are the ones with maybe a little bit of extra cash in their back pocket this window, maybe we can steal a march on some of the other clubs.
Well, there's a two-word reason why I would go out and get Camavinga, and that's Jude Bellingham, because
Yeah, well, yes, the club does have to learn from. And look, I don't criticise the club too much for missing out on Jude Bellingham because Man City, I'm sure, are after him. Liverpool were probably after him. Chelsea were probably after him. Those clubs didn't get criticised for not signing him, but Man United got criticised for not signing him. But you do need to learn then sort of it is what United sort of are founded on so often, sort of taking a risk on these young players. And you can sort of maybe take a leaf out of Dortmund's books. We've just spent 70 million on one of Dortmund's players. So we do need to look at a club like Dortmund and how they sort of trust in their young players and give them a chance.
yeah, even if he's not ready to play as a six behind Pogba and Fernandes, I would just go out and get him anyway. He seems like he's well worth the risk. But coming on to the player ratings now, normally I would go through all the players from 1 to 11, but it seems kind of pointless because I think everyone's a 7 out of 10 or above. So let's just discuss who's more than a 7 out of 10. Who's more than a 7 out of 10 for you?
Of coming in this window.
No, in terms of the game against Leeds.
Oh, also, sorry, read that question wrong. Who's more than a 7 out? Oh, look, Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, you can't knock them. I actually thought Mason Greenwood, performance-wise, was good, but it was beyond the performance. It was the importance of that goal, not only the importance of the goal, how good a goal it was. He was at full pelt sprinting 100 mile an hour because the defender was catching him. And to hit that ball with that technique at that pace, I think is well worth a mention. But look, Bruno Pogba and for me, if not Greenwood, Scott McTominay, as I said, I thought was one of his best displays. Just unfortunate he wasn't able to cap it off with a goal or even 2 or 3 goals like he hopefully does against Leeds in the future.
Yeah, I think um, Pogba and Fernandes were 9s. Green was an 8, and I think McTominay was an 8 or a 9, and then I think everyone else was about 7.
I think that's what you want. So often, sometimes outperform. You maybe get a Bruno hits a 9 or a 10 out of 10 sort of thing. But then there's always maybe 2 or 3 plays. You think sometimes you can mark them a 4 or a 5. It's not often with almost our worst player is a 7. And if you go through a season with your worst player, obviously it's not going to happen. You're going to have sort of bad games and dips in form. But if you can have your worst player at a 7 out of 10, you're going to have a successful game. And if you have many of those, it's a successful season.
Well, I talked about this on my previous podcast, and that's the fixture list. The first 7 games, where I don't like using the word easy, but they're winnable. And what we really want to ideally do is get at least 6 wins and a draw there, and maybe build up a wee bit of a lead at the top of the table if we can. Well, we're off to a flyer, and hopefully this continues.
It's so important because we had former, maybe not everyone's biggest fan, but Mark Bosnich on the podcast the other day, the only Australian to play for Man United. We're talking to him and we're talking about the importance of these early games, not just, okay, as you mentioned, and rightly so, there's sort of these winnable games that we need to take advantage of. But a game at home in August against Leeds, it's 3 points. It's just as valuable as Burnley away in April or March. It doesn't matter when you win your games, you just need to win them. They're so valuable now. And it's so important because teams are obviously we're in a situation where we're looking at players who are coming back from the Euros and we're saying, are there fitness concerns, etc. Chelsea and City and Liverpool and Tottenham and Arsenal, they're maybe not Arsenal, but they're all having the same discussions. So if one or two of those teams drop points, look at City. They've dropped points against Spurs. Now, obviously, City are potentially going to go on 20 games later on in the season, and the Spurs loss will be a distant memory. But when these teams are dropping points, like Arsenal, like City, etc., Spurs or Arsenal and Chelsea are going to drop points next week. One of them, if we can get into a rhythm of getting that 18 to sort of 24 points straight away in those first couple of games, yeah, it's almost a necessity to do so because we will hit a bad patch of form eventually, whether that come at Christmas or in the new year. That will happen, and it's going to happen to every team. But while those fixtures are there, presentable, I would say easy / definitely winnable, United need to win them because, look, is it our best chance post-Fergie to win a title? I know City are strong, and City, in my opinion, are still a lot stronger than us. But in terms of the way that the chips have fallen, especially with our business in the transfer market, I'll throw it to you. Is this our best chance post-Fergie? Like even under Jose Mourinho, we had maybe a little bit of confidence, but I think deep down we didn't really believe it. This time there is, whilst a lot of people do have City as favourites, there's maybe a little bit more belief there now.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is the best squad we've had post Fergie. Definitely in terms of ability and attitude as well. Um, and then you take into account that City don't really have a striker as it stands at the moment, and that has cost them in their last three games. They haven't
Yeah.
scored a goal. Um, Chelsea, I think, will be strong. They've got Lukaku in, and they've just won the Champions League. They'll be targeting the league this season. A lot of people are tipping them. Liverpool got Van Dijk back. They've started off well. See, it's going to be four teams fighting for the league, but I think we have a real chance if we can get off to a good start because we don't play any of the big teams in October. But if we start dropping points between now and the Leicester game, then I don't think we do have a chance. But if we can build up a wee bit of a lead going into those hard games in October, then I'll start to believe.
Yeah, no, look, couldn't agree more. And I think it's just so important because winning breeds winning at the moment. If you do sort of start the season, well, it does take a damper on it. I think so often we say, oh, this is a confidence player. This player's low on confidence. You can't play him when he's low on confidence. Every footballer is a confidence player. Every footballer is going to play better when they're winning. So we need to take advantage of that. I think whatever season we have to win the league, because I think Chelsea and City are potentially stronger than us just on paper in terms of their squads. And even, look, I love Solskjaer, but even from the dugout and the managerial position, they're stronger. So even if we have a good season, there's a situation where Chelsea and City still finish above us. So for us to be successful, we probably do need City or Chelsea to have a poor season by their standards. You just hope, which has happened on occasions before, if they have a poor season and we have a poor season, you think, oh God, what could have been? We just need to be in a situation where if they do slip up, if they have a bad Christmas period, if they have a bad January or February, we need to be in a position where we're not sort of going, oh, what could have been? We need to actually take advantage of this time.
Yeah, because the previous two seasons on the Solskjaer, we get off to horrendous starts, only winning a couple of our first seven games or something. And you're just leaving yourself with too much to do. I know we ended up being top of the league last January, but that was never going to be sustainable with
Yeah.
our squad against cities. Uh, but you just if you don't get off to a good start, you're never going to win the league. It's
Well, it
just
goes
simple as
back to
that.
what I was saying, how valuable the points are now. Like, okay, we're not in a title race at the moment. It's 3 points. As I said, City potentially going to win 20 in a row. But at the moment, City are playing catch up, and I know it's not a real thing, but technically they are. Okay, if we win next week, we go to 6 points. If City need to win that game to keep the distance at 3, so look, it's not a title race, but those technicalities are there. They're playing catch up, and I'd rather be in our position in front, putting the pressure on all the other teams in the league.
Yeah, because it feels like we're always playing catch up. It'd be
Yeah.
nice to actually get off to a good start and that teams try and come after us for a change.
Do you
Uh,
think I'll just throw to you quickly. Do you think the being in the Champions League might help? Because I think one of the reasons we've always been playing catch up in recent seasons is almost that Europa League hangover. We're having to play on a Thursday, which means our game's on a Sunday. So the teams are playing on a Saturday. We see their result. Suddenly they've had one extra game. We think, okay, they won on Saturday. We're then technically playing catch up on a Sunday. Do you think being back in the Champions League, and we're bouncing around the Champions League last couple of seasons, but now you would really sort of cement us as a Champions League club. Do you think playing on a Saturday and sort of putting the pressure on those teams in a sort of Tottenham, Arsenal, sort of Leicester, etc., who will have to play their games on a Sunday? Do you think that was part of the not having to play the catch up?
yeah, I think it definitely is a factor. Nobody wants to be playing, Thursday nights and Sunday mornings. It'll always have an impact on every team, especially if your Thursday game is like away in Turkey or Russia or something,
Mm.
and you're back then on Sunday afternoon playing the Premier League. It's very, very tough. And it's just as long as our Champions League group isn't a real difficult one like we got last
Yeah.
season, where you could be playing like PSG away on the Wednesday, and then you're playing City or Liverpool on Saturday afternoon.
I had a quick look at the pots, though. We can't get PSG because they finished second in the French league. So thank God we don't have to be facing Mbappe, Neymar, and Lionel Messi. PSG, we can't get them. Thank God.
Yeah, we could probably get Bayern Munich though, can't we?
Yeah, yeah, potentially.
And for a change, I wouldn't mind getting Barca or Madrid in the group stage because I think
Look, in the Champions League, it's always good. Like, well, okay, you prefer an easy group in regards to results. In the Champions League, it is good to have a big team in the group. Yeah, it is good. It's why you're in the Champions League. You don't have to win the group to go through. You can get second. So if you do lose a game, it's not the end of the world if there is a better team in the group. Yeah, I'd definitely rather a Bayern Munich than, I don't know, who else is in there? Villarreal sort of thing. Like, okay, Villarreal, they showed us up in the Europa League final, but you know what I mean? You want that glamour tie in the Champions League. It's why you're there.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind one glamour team in a group, but I don't want the group of death again. There
Yeah.
were PSG and RB Leipzig in the same group,
Yeah.
and yeah, but like I was saying there, I wouldn't mind getting Barcelona or Real Madrid in our group because I would fancy us to beat them now, given the situation they're now in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, okay, it does provide you that glamour tie in regards to the names, but yeah, you do look at the squads, you do look at the players, and yeah, just the situation their clubs find themselves in. And United are, while we do have huge issues, underlying issues in terms of the Glazers and the ownership, etc. At the moment, there is a feel good factor, sort of on the outside, and at the moment on the outside, Real Madrid and Barcelona definitely don't have that feel good factor. So, yeah, it would be which Spanish team can we draw? It would be Atletico Madrid, I think, wouldn't be? Yeah.
They won the league. Yeah, so maybe we can't get Barca or Madrid anyway.
Well, one of them might be in pot three, then or pot four or something. I assume Barcelona might be in our pot, so you obviously can't get two Spanish teams. But yeah, well, we could be getting one of the Madrid teams maybe.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the draw.
Mm.
Yeah, what you really want is one glamour tie and two other teams being, beatable ones.
Like
Um,
Panathinaikos or Olympiacos we usually
yeah,
get.
yeah, yeah, or Cluj or
Yeah.
Rosenborg or something like that. Um, okay, we'll come on to the Southampton game now. It's quite a gap between the Leeds game and the Southampton game, 8 days, I think. It's a nice rest and a good chance for like Varane and Cavani to get some training under their belt and be in contention for this game. Although I suspect that he might not change the lineup considering the result. Um, although Sancho might come in for Don James. What do you think?
Yeah, if I was to make one change, like, while I do want to see Varane play, definitely, as I said at the start of the episode, I wouldn't mind seeing Lindelof. I think Lindelof deserves to play, and you can maybe be a little bit patient with Rafael Varane. The one change I would make is Jadon Sancho in for Dan James. I think Dan James, look, I do like him, but just quality wise, I think he does get shown up, and then you do see a player in regards to his replacement in Jadon Sancho, the quality he brings. Yeah, I think it's about time we see Jadon Sancho play.
I'm looking forward to seeing can we keep our away form up this season because I think we were helped massively by the fact that there was no fans in the last
Definitely.
18 months. Now that we're going to be facing grounds where there's hostile home fans who are, whistling our every touch, can we overcome that and keep our away record going?
Look, definitely we'll lose a game, and I think probably lose a game quite soon. And hopefully not too soon. Hopefully these winnable fixtures we do get over the line. But you're completely right. Last season, our away record was so good. I think the whole league was so good. The away record and home record was almost flipped on its head, but especially ours. And I think that does come back. Look, Old Trafford will improve at Old Trafford this year. It was our home form that let us down. So you saw the atmosphere against Leeds. That'll be a benefit. But I think you just mentioned for every club, but especially United, whoever United play, it's their biggest game of the season. Maybe Tottenham and Arsenal, maybe they make a case that their game against each other is the biggest game. But other than that, whatever ground United go to, it's the biggest game of the season. And ultimately, look, you've got to lose eventually. We will lose an away game this season. I'd just like to maybe achieve that record. I think we maybe need two more games on the road, I think, to either reach or break the record, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I think our home form is going to improve as a result of having the fans back, but I'm just worried that the away form will suffer as a result. Just hopefully it won't be too much of a downfall in terms of our away form. I accept the fact that we are going to lose a couple of games, but hopefully it's not a total collapse.
Oh yeah, well, I think that's the important thing. I think any manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, used to say the same thing. You've got to accept and prepare. You've got to lose games. The important thing is, okay, lose. Okay, that's fine. Embrace it. That happened. Don't lose next week. That is what sometimes happens, and what has sort of, as you mentioned, sort of almost derailed our season at times. You lose one, draw the next one. Confidence is low. You lose again. The important thing is to, when you lose, okay, take it on the chin, accept it, and make sure it doesn't happen again. That's something we maybe have struggled with in previous times. Whether that improves. Look, I think people like the mentality Bruno Fernandes has brought, Rafael Varane will obviously bring. That will help. So, yeah, fingers crossed, as you say, when things do go wrong, which they eventually will at some stage this season, it is about how you bounce back, because the team who wins the league, they will always be the team who is strongest in bouncing back. That's the case every single season. So if United do want to win the league, when we do lose, they have to bounce back the next game.
Yeah, and there's definitely no way we can afford to lose games at home to Sheffield United
Yeah.
or draw games away to West Brom. The team that wins the league always gets maximum points in those types of fixtures.
Yeah, I think there's a stat, and I don't know how accurate it is these days, but I remember it was under Ferguson. The yeah, you could drop one game at home, sort of thing, and that was maybe a draw. Sometimes maybe you could lose a game at home, and that was the team who won the league. The away record, obviously, you lose a game here or there, pick up draws, but at home, if you've got 19 home games, you're winning 17, 18 home games.
Yeah, we need to be looking for winning about 17 home games, and I would say looking at winning maybe 10 or 11 away games,
Yeah.
and only suffering like maybe 3 or 4 defeats throughout the whole season.
My concern with that, and not with that specific stat, but that's where I do look at, okay, well, United have improved. We look good. If United do that and have a great season, United could hit, let's say, 90 points, 95 points. United could be great, especially when you compare that to previous seasons. You do look how good City are. Potentially they could add 30 goals to their season with Harry Kane, sort of thing. What if they hit 96, 97 points? Like, there's nothing we can do about that. If we improve to that level where we are winning 17 home games, 10, 11 away games, City, we can't remember how far ahead they were last year. Okay, we have had good signings of Varane and Sancho. That's great. That's closed the gap. But they've brought in Grealish and Harry Kane, etc. So that is where I'll come back to the point where, okay, we need to be good. But in order to turn that being good into being successful and winning, we do need a Chelsea and City maybe to have a little bit of not a collapse, but just have maybe a poor season by their standards.
Yeah, I think if we finished the season on 95 points and didn't win the league, I think Solskjaer's job is pretty safe.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But well, you say that, and look, yeah, completely safe, especially in my opinion. But it will come a time where Solskjaer will need to turn, because it will be based on trophies. And okay, you can't knock that season, but he'll need to find a way to win a trophy, whether that comes through the league or a League Cup or FA Cup. However we play, however how good the performances are, however close the league title race is, he will need to find a way to get something over the line trophy wise.
Yeah, even if we had a sublime season where we got 95 points and finished second, he does need to get at least an FA Cup or League Cup on the board, and ideally a Champions League. I think the Champions League, I know we talked about it already, I think it's open this season again for the English teams to win it, because obviously the Spanish teams are no longer a threat. PSG obviously will be, Bayern obviously will be, but if the winner doesn't come from PSG or Bayern, it'll definitely be an English team.
The Champions League's harder. It's what everyone strives for. It's the biggest competition, so you always assume it's the best team in Europe. Very rarely it's the best team in Europe. But just look, it's almost, it's not the FA Cup, but it is a knockout competition. Okay, we sometimes lose track of that because there's a group stage and then there's 2 legs, but ultimately it's a knockout tournament. Okay, you don't have to be fantastic throughout a 38 game season. You have to get through your group. You sometimes win three games in a group. That'll get you through sometimes. And then 2 legs, a couple of draws, well, away goals, I don't think are involved this season. But if you get into the round of 16 and you draw, I keep using the term Villarreal. I don't want to use that because they beat us in the Europa League final. But if you get one of the lesser Spanish teams or lesser Italian teams, suddenly you're in the quarterfinals. You have a good quarterfinal and you find yourself against a Real Madrid who aren't quite at it in the semifinals. Suddenly you are in a final. So, look, it sounds stupid at the moment seeing what the position United have been in to start talking about going on to win the Champions League this season. But you wouldn't have been having that discussion when Chelsea started that season last season under Frank Lampard. It goes to show any team in there with a bit of quality does have what it takes to win the Champions League.
Yeah, the final itself last year is a prime example of that, because up until that point, City had a far better season than Chelsea, but Chelsea won the game and took home the trophy.
Yeah, no, definitely. And look, you can get my hopes up to you talking about European Champions League finals, but it is there, and it is what United have to strive for. Like, okay, fall short, that potentially will happen, but we need to be in a position now where, we're not prioritising. I remember that time under Jose Mourinho when we were going for the Europa League, and I understand the risk and why he did it, but we sort of binned off the league and went for the Europa League. We need to be in a position now, 3-4 years into Solskjaer's reign, where Champions League on a Wednesday, Premier League on a Saturday, we're going full strength to make sure we win the game. We can't be prioritising trophies or anything. We just need every game is almost a cup final now.
My feeling is that Solskjaer will prioritise the league first and foremost. But like I talked about in the last podcast, if there comes a situation in March where we're no longer really in the title race, but we're in the Champions League
Oh
quarterfinals,
yeah.
semi-finals, then he might change his priority.
Oh yeah, definitely. When situations and circumstances arise, you need to reevaluate things. But at the moment, that is why you go into the transfer market to invest in your squad and get a deep squad in terms of quality players. Because look at the game against Leeds. A lot of people have Fred McTominay's potential. I definitely wouldn't put McTominay in here, but a lot of people would have Fred and McTominay as our two weakest midfielders. Well, then suddenly you're looking at our bench, and suddenly our bench is very strong because a lot of people have our two best midfielders on the bench. So it does show that we are sort of critical of our squad at times, but when you actually do look at it, we do have quite a deep squad.
Yeah, and if we can add that, top class defensive midfielder in there, then I really will be confident that we can achieve something this season.
Yeah, no, well, that's another debate. What have we got? 2 weeks left of the transfer window. As we said at the start, there hasn't been too much smoke in and around a transfer room for the defensive midfielder, but there is time. And going by Solskjaer, the sort of Sky interviews he was doing before the season, which came out on the eve of the Leeds game, it did look like he was sort of not confident, but United are definitely in for someone. Whether that someone is a midfielder, whether that someone is potentially Trippier, which is a different debate in regards to the right back situation. But my takeaway from his interviews is he is in for someone. He does want another addition. It's a flip of a coin to who that addition is.
Yeah, well, we've seen the likes of Tuanzebe go out on loan, and in terms of permanent transfers, I think the most likely is probably Andres Pereira and Jesse Lingard before the window shuts. Would you go along with that?
Oh, you'd think so. I think United, through the fault of their own, in a position where it's maybe tricky to offload them in regards to the wages. But I think, especially in Lingard's case, I think, well, Lingard would be happy to stay at United. I think he's more than happy and sort of maybe willing to go to West Ham. West Ham definitely keen on him. Andreas Pereira as well. I think he's maybe just got to the stage now where he realizes he isn't going to play and will look to get a move away. So while there are concerns, can we get a deal done? Whether it be a loan with an obligation to buy or a permanent deal, given United situation, you could almost see a situation it will be another loan with the option to buy at the end of it, hopefully. But if two people were to leave, you'd definitely be saying Pereira and Lingard. And Lingard, if a transfer fee came in for Lingard, you could say there's a little bit of money to be had there. I don't think we'd be getting as much as a lot of people think, because obviously West Ham don't want to afford the transfer fee plus the wages. So I think that's why they're really trying to get that transfer fee down, which is why United are reluctant to accept the deal, which is that look, that's United's fault for putting players on such big wages. But in terms of other players, is there anyone that would look? It's a debate. You could do a whole nother podcast on it. There is the debate around Anthony Martial. He is a player who, if a club did want, he's someone who you could get 40, 50, 60 million pound for. It depends how sort of desperate they are for a striker. But look, I know he does divide opinion. I don't think it's a time to be selling Martial. I think you do have to give him another season, especially in regards to what we want from depth in the front three. But yeah, those two, Pereira and Lingard, you'd have to say are probably looking very likely to leave. Just in terms of, is it going to be a loan or a permanent move? Time will tell.
Yeah, I think Solskjaer has basically ruled out the possibility of selling Martial in this window.
Yeah.
With regards to Lingard, I think United want 30 million from West Ham as reported, but I can see this ended up being about in and around the 20 million mark come deadline day. I think that the deal will be done around there somewhere. Where Andres Pereira goes, I'm really not sure. There's been reported interest from Everton. Then there's been reported interest from Brazil, Flamingo.
Yeah, actually, yes, I saw that one today. Which, look, sometimes when a story comes out like that out of nowhere, usually there's maybe something in there, but it is a weird one. That'll be an interesting one. Time will tell, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anyone else who could potentially? Well, Phil Jones, we've talked about him for years leaving the club, but it never happens. He was the new contract that he was given in 2019 was inexcusable. Even his agent was surprised by that,
Yeah.
and he just seems like he's going to set it out to the end of his contract. But did you hear that story about that he refused to give up his number 4 jersey for Varane? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we had a debate about that yesterday on our podcast. And look, ultimately, if I put myself in his shoes, if I'm at United and I have a shirt number, they come to me saying, "Can you give your number up?" I'm going to tell, I'm giving the finger and tell, go away. So I can't really criticize him. He's a contracted footballer at Man United. He's a professional. He's well within his right to keep his shirt number. I do feel just it does not that he has a legacy at United, it's probably a negative legacy, but it does take something away. Again, he's well within his right to keep that shirt number, but he's got to accept the position he's in. He's not going to play this. Well, I hope he's not going to play this season, but he has to know deep down he's not wanted at this club. He's not going to play. He sees someone come in, Rafael Varane. I personally think he should give him the shirt number. It obviously wasn't the case, but I say that. But I also go back to, well, it's his shirt number. He's contracted. He's well within his right to keep it. So I can't criticize him too much. But there is a part of me that says, yeah, he really should have. If Varane wanted the number, which from all reports you probably do assume that he did, I would have liked to have seen Phil Jones. I think Phil Jones could have done a bit better here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's within his rights to refuse to give his number to a new signing. But I also think that it's a bad look.
Yeah, it was just it's hard with Phil Jones. It's hard to gauge the situation on how to deal with it because it's a weird one. You could do a whole episode on Phil Jones' story, and it's an interesting one, and it's one that the club have sort of they dug their own hole in terms of you talk about that contract, and it was inexcusable at the time, and it's even come out that Solskjaer was surprised by it. You used to talk about his agent and Phil Jones being surprised. It came on to Solskjaer's doorstep, and he was going, "Had Phil Jones get a new deal?" sort of thing. So yeah, look, as I say, well within his right to keep the contract. Just unfortunately, from a fan's point of view, and Man United fans do care about numbers. We sit here and we said it really shouldn't matter, but for Man United fans, shirt numbers do matter. It's part of the club's history, sort of thing. So it is a bad look, but what can you do?
Okay, it's been a fascinating chat as always, Tom. It's great to have you on the show.
No, pleasure. As I said, in lockdown in Sydney, but a pleasure to come on and talk United anytime.
Okay, I'll let you head off to bed now. All right. See you
Yeah,
later.
almost bedtime. See you, mate.
Okay, bye.
See you, mate.